In the heart of the city, life doesn't stop moving. Among the crowd on the bus are two distinct individuals. Mr. Edwards, an elderly man with a worn cane, sits quietly near the middle, his weathered hands resting on his lap. Just a few feet away stands Ethan, a young man in a black hoodie. His arms are crossed and his sharp gaze is fixed on Mr. Edwards. The contrast between them is stark. Mr. Edwards exudes calm wisdom, while Ethan's impatient energy crackles like static in the air. A subtle tension begins to brew as the bus bumps along its route, a prelude to the moment about to unfold. The atmosphere on the bus shifts, the murmur of conversations fading as the confrontation becomes the center of attention. Ethan, standing tall and indignant, stares down at Mr. Edwards, his frustration palpable. He shifts his weight from one foot to the other, arms crossed, his tone sharp and demanding. On the other hand, Mr. Edwards remains composed, his calm demeanor like a rock in the middle of a storm. His quiet resolve only seems to fuel Ethan's impatience, adding to the tension that spreads through the bus like wildfire. Ethan's voice rises, cutting through the awkward silence. I said, "Get up now. I've been standing all day and I'm not asking again." His words dripped with entitlement, each syllable louder than the last. Mr. Edwards doesn't flinch. His grip on his cane tightens, his knuckles white, but his tone remains steady. "Young man," he begins, his voice calm but firm, "respect your elders. I've been seated since I got on this bus, just like you had the chance to." Ethan's frustration boils over, his hands gesturing angrily. "Oh, so you're too good to move, huh? Just sitting there while I'm standing? Unbelievable." Ethan takes a step forward, his voice cutting sharply through the noise. "Hey, old man, that's my seat. Get up," he demands, his tone impatient and firm. Mr. Edwards looks up, his calm, steady gaze meeting Ethan's fiery glare. He tightens his grip on the cane but remains seated. "Excuse me," Mr. Edwards replies, his voice even, carrying a quiet strength. Around them, passengers glance nervously at each other, sensing the brewing conflict. The bus continues its journey, but all eyes are now on this unfolding moment, where generations collide in a simple yet profound battle over respect. The bus feels like a pressure cooker, with every word exchanged between Ethan and Mr. Edwards adding to the tension. Passengers silently take sides. Some sympathize with Ethan's frustration, while others admire Mr. Edwards' unwavering composure. Ethan leans in even closer, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "I guess you think you're some kind of king sitting on a throne, huh?" But Mr. Edwards doesn't bite. His calm gaze meets Ethan's fiery glare, and his response is simple yet profound. "I've earned my rest, son. You'll have plenty of chances to sit in your life. Learn to stand now." The bus jolts slightly as it hits a bump in the road, but no one notices. All eyes are on Ethan and Mr. Edwards, waiting to see who will yield first in this battle of wills. Ethan's frustration is reaching a boiling point, his posture rigid and confrontational. The whispered judgments of the passengers seem to fuel his anger rather than temper it. Feeling the weight of their silent stares, he attempts to shift the narrative, addressing the crowd in an effort to validate his actions. Ethan raises his voice, gesturing broadly to the passengers. "Can you believe this guy, sitting there like he owns the place? Who even does that?" His words echo through the bus, but instead of gaining support, his tone elicits more disapproval. A middle-aged man mutters under his breath, loud enough for Ethan to hear. "You're the one making a scene." Ethan spins around, his frustration boiling over. "Was that? You got something to say to me?" he snaps. The man doesn't back down, his tone firm but even. "Yeah, sit down if you're so tired. There are plenty of other spots." Ever glares at him, his anger mounting, but he doesn't respond. Instead, he turns back to Mr. Edwards, his voice louder and more aggressive. "I'm not letting this go. You're going to give me that seat or I'll just stand here until you do the right thing." Lucy, a confident and outspoken passenger, decides to step in. She's had enough of the escalating tension and Ethan's growing hostility. Her intervention cuts through the thick atmosphere, drawing all eyes to her. Lucy crosses her arms, her voice clear and unwavering. "Hey, maybe you should leave him alone. He's clearly not moving, and honestly, you're embarrassing yourself." Ethan turns to her, his anger redirected. Stay out of this. This is between me and him. But Lucy doesn't back down, her tone sharp but composed. No, it's not. It's between you and your ego. Ethan, visibly humiliated by the growing laughter, clenches his jaw. The power dynamic shifts as Lucy's calm confidence exposes the absurdity of his behavior. Still, he refuses to concede. Oh, so now everyone's against me? Great, just great, Ethan says sarcastically, throwing his hands up. Lucy doesn't miss a beat, her voice steady. Maybe take a step back and think about why that is. The conflict has now drawn the entire bus into its orbit. While Ethan struggles to hold on to his anger, Lucy's intervention highlights the futility of his argument. Her words resonate, not just with Ethan, but with everyone watching. The bus jerks to a stop at a traffic light, and for a moment, the tension seems to pause. Ethan stands there, his shoulders tense, but his defiance slowly giving way to the pressure of the collective disapproval around him. As the light turns green and the bus moves forward, so does the dynamic. Ethan's frustration lingers, but his confidence is visibly shaken. Lucy returns to her seat, her calm presence a stark contrast to Ethan's lingering anger. The passengers settle slightly, though their eyes remain on Ethan, waiting to see his next move. This moment, though brief, becomes a pivotal point in the journey, a clash of values that leaves an indelible mark on everyone aboard. Mr. Edwards has remained calm throughout the confrontation, his composure a stark contrast to Ethan's frustration. Now, as the young man leans closer, his voice sharp and aggressive, Mr. Edwards decides it's time to impart a lesson, not with anger, but with wisdom. Ethan raises his voice again, his tone laced with frustration. Listen here, old man, I'm not playing games. You're getting up, or I'll make you. The bus falls silent. Even the hum of the engine seems to fade as the weight of the moment settles over the passengers. Mr. Edwards lifts his gaze, meeting Ethan's fiery stare with quiet authority. The wisdom in Mr. Edwards' words doesn't just impact Ethan, it resonates with everyone on the bus. The tension that once gripped the passengers begins to ease as they recognize the profound truth in what he has said. Ethan mutters under his breath, his voice barely audible. Whatever, not worth it. He steps back, avoiding eye contact as he retreats to the back of the bus. His movements are slow, his earlier bravado replaced by quiet embarrassment. Son, he begins, his voice steady and filled with a calm strength, life is full of choices. Right now, you're choosing to act out in front of all these people, showing them the worst side of yourself. Ethan stiffened, caught off guard by the words. Mr. Edwards continues, his tone unwavering. You can keep going like this, letting your anger control you, or you can sit down, learn some patience, and maybe, just maybe, grow up a little. The choice is yours. Mr. Edwards doesn't gloat or revel in his victory. For him, the lesson wasn't about winning an argument, but planting a seed, a moment of reflection that might one day lead to growth. The passengers, too, seemed to sense this, their collective judgment of Ethan softening into quiet hope that he might learn from this encounter. The tension from the earlier confrontation has eased, replaced by a calm that settles over the bus like a gentle breeze. The incident is over, but its impact lingers, a reminder of the lessons learned in moments of conflict. Ethan, who had been so full of anger and entitlement, now sits silently, his earlier bravado replaced with subtle regret. A young boy sitting near the front tugs at his mother's sleeve, his innocent curiosity breaking the silence. "Mom, why was that man yelling?" he asks, his voice soft but inquisitive. The mother leans down, her tone gentle as she replies. "Sometimes people let their frustrations take over," she explains, "but it's important to stay calm and think before you act." The boy nods, his small face thoughtful as he looks toward Ethan. For Mr. Edwards, the moment wasn't just about standing his ground. It was a reminder of the patience and wisdom that come with age. His calm strength had not only diffused the situation, but also planted a seed of reflection in Ethan's mind. A nearby passenger leans toward Mr. Edwards, her voice kind. "Are you okay, sir?" she asks. Sarah Edwards turns to her and smiles faintly. I'm fine, thank you, he replies. Just thinking. He pauses, his voice lowering slightly, as if speaking more to himself than anyone else. Stand your ground, but always with grace. The bus hums softly, weaving through the streets as it carries its passengers toward their destinations. The earlier incident fades into the background, becoming just another story among countless others in the city. Yet, for those aboard, it leaves a lasting impression. A moment of tension, reflection, and perhaps growth. Sometimes, life's biggest lessons come from the smallest moments. A crowded bus, an unexpected confrontation, and a few simple words can spark reflection not just for those involved, but for everyone watching. Respect, patience, and grace are values that transcend age and circumstance, reminding us all of the importance of humility and understanding. Lucy leans toward her friend, her tone soft yet hopeful. Maybe he'll learn something from this, she says, glancing briefly toward Ethan. Her friend nods, a small smile on her lips. In the end, it's not about who was right or wrong, it's about the lessons we carry with us and the choices we make to be better, kinder, and stronger in the face of life's challenges.